am putting the order in the chat. Do we have anyone who is not? Oh, we weren't quite ready, Carolyn.
So we're going to put the order of questions in the chat. So you teachers, if you want to watch the chat, so you know when your class is coming up. And like I said, just have your students on deck to get ready to ask their questions. We'll take one question from each class at a time. All right. So I think we're ready to get started. Okay, close this. So good morning, everyone. My name is Kim Hazel Rudden. I am the Blue STEM Publicity Co-Chair. I'm going to pass it over to, we have some other members from aisle here. I'll let them introduce themselves. Sorry about that. Heather, I'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Heather Cribbs. I'm the Publicity Coach and also a K-5 STEM teacher in Berkeley.
I'm Elizabeth Ellsbury. I am a school librarian in the East Aurora School District. Oh, and I am the chair of the Blue STEM community.
Carolyn, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Carolyn Kinsella. I am the aisle executive secretary, trying to make sure that things work properly.
Yeah.
We also have some classes here in person. We have some students from 7th Avenue School in LaGrange, from Owen Elementary in Naperville, and from Goodrich Elementary in Woodridge. So enough about us. We are here because we have a very special guest. One of our Blue STEM nominated authors is joining us today to answer your questions. So today we have Adam Gidwitz, and I'm going to turn it over to him and let him talk to us for a little bit, and then we'll get to your questions.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to talk just for a very short amount of time because I really would like to hear your questions. I'm also going to talk kind of fast because I tend to talk pretty fast, and also because I want to leave time for you guys. So my name is Adam Gidwitz. I'm the author of a lot of books. I'm the author of a book called A Tale Dark and Grim, which some of you might know. It is also actually a show on Netflix right now. I'm also the author of The Inquisitor's Tale, which is a medieval epic adventure. But today I'm here to talk to you about the Unicorn Rescue Society because you all nominated the Unicorn Rescue Society books for your Blue STEM Award, which I am so honored by. I have won other awards in the past and I could brag about them for hours, and I'll do that later with my wife because that's what we do over dinner. She doesn't like it, but I'm not going to do that today because the Blue STEM Award, when students nominate you and then students vote on your books, it is, to authors like me, the most important kind of award. We love it when librarians say our books are good. We love it when teachers or book critics say our books are good. But the reason we write our books is because we want you all to like them. I want to make you all laugh. I want to make you scream sometimes because I like writing things that can be a little bit creepy. I like to make you think harder. I like to make you cry just a little bit at the end in a happy way. I like to do all of those things. And if you all are doing it, then I'm doing my job and I'm feeling good about it. So last thing I'll say, which is the Unicorn Rescue Society is about two kids, a boy named Elliot and a girl named Uchenna. And they travel around the world rescuing different mythical creatures from danger. Now, the one kind of creature that they have never found is, if you think you know, you can shout it out, even if I can't hear you. What's the one creature that they really want to find that they've never found?
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So while it's called the Unicorn Rescue Society, in fact, there are no unicorns in the books because they haven't found one yet. So there are other crazy mythical creatures like a Jersey Devil, which is like this guy. He lives in New Jersey. And dragons. And Bigfoot, also known as Sasquatch. And chupacabras. And sea serpents like the Madre Aguas. And then, well, there's one secret creature that maybe you'll find if you get to the last book. But the books are fast, funny, weird adventures about mythical creatures and rescuing them around the world. Okay, that's all I want to say. I'm done. I want to hear what you all have to say. Let's do it. Who's got a question?
Thank you. So we're going to go to Miss Klassen's class. So Miss Klassen, if you have a student who's ready to ask a question, you can go ahead and let them come up to the camera. Students, you're welcome to introduce yourself, but maybe just keep to your first name.
Your first name.
Go ahead.
Hey, buddy, what's your question?
Why did you name the dragon the New Jersey Devil?
Okay, great question. So the Jersey Devil is not something that I made up. In the state of New Jersey, I'm very close to New Jersey right now. I live in Brooklyn, New York. And so I can actually, when I get to go to my roof, I can see New Jersey. In the state of New Jersey, they have believed for 300 years that there was this creature that lives in the Pine Barrens, which is a very remote area of New Jersey. If you've read the book, you know that the story is that there was once a woman who had 12 children. And when she heard that she was going to have a 13th child, she said, "Oh, I'd rather have a devil than another child." And she shouldn't have said that, because when she gave birth, out came a strange creature with wings and hooves on the front, hooves in the back and claws on the front. And it was the Jersey Devil. And it has flew away into the wilderness. And it has, they say, haunted New Jersey ever since. And that is the creature that not only is in this book, but then gets to be their friend and shows up in all of the books after that. So I did not make up the Jersey Devil. That is a legend that still exists in New Jersey to this day. Great question. Next question.
Thank you, Leo. Miss Crable's class, if you're ready, if your student's ready.
What inspired you to make like the kind of dark fantasy books?
Great question. Okay. So you know that, so these books can be kind of scary, like the ones I just told you about, like can be a little freaky, but my Tale Dark and Grim and the other books in that series, like In a Glass Grimly and The Grim Conclusion, are quite dark fantasy. They're almost like horror humor, I like to call them. Why did I make books like that? I'm going to tell you. So I was a teacher. I taught first grade, second grade, fifth grade in high school. I never taught third or fourth grade because I don't really like third and fourth graders. I'm just kidding. That was a joke. But I was teaching second grade. And one year my school asked me if I'd be willing to be a substitute librarian for a day. And I was like, yes, because librarian is one of the best jobs I can imagine. You get to hang out with kids and share stories you like with kids. I was like, I want to do that. They said, great. You're going to be telling stories to second graders. I said, no problem. They said, tell them any story you want. I said, great. So I went home and I was looking around on my shelves for a good book to read to these second graders. And I came across this book, this very one. This is my book of the real grim fairy tales. Now, I had never read this book before, so I looked at it and I thought, oh, fairy tales. Those are perfect for second graders. So I opened it up and I started to read it, and I came to a story called Faithful Johannes right here. And in the story of Faithful Johannes, two kids get their heads cut off. They get put back on again, so they're fine. But I read that and I was like, can I read this to second graders? Will I get fired? And then I thought, let's find out. So I brought the book in and I started to read it to these second graders. And very quickly, they started to get very nervous. So I would make a joke to calm them down, or I would try to warn them before something really scary happened. And I think I did a pretty good job, because by the end of the story, I looked up and every kid had the same expression on his or her face. Every kid looked exactly like this, like, and I was like, oh boy. So I dismissed the children. Some of them were crying. I think one little boy peed his pants. But a few of them came up to me afterwards, and I'll never forget it, because this one little girl, she sticks her finger in my face and she goes, that was good. And I was like, what? And she goes, you should make that into a book. And I thought, maybe I should. And so I did. So A Tale Dark and Grim, the first chapter of that book is based exactly on that story I told to those kids, with all the warnings, all the jokes right in the story. Yes, two kids get their heads cut off in the very beginning of the book, but they get put back on again. They're totally fine. I promise. Don't worry about it. So that is why I write dark fairy tales, because a second grade girl stuck her finger in my face and told me to. Next question.
I'm glad that story didn't end with you got fired, so you had to become an author. I'm glad it took that positive
That's another
turn.
way it could have ended. That never occurred to me.
Yes. So I was on the edge of my seat there. So this is Petrick's class. If your student's ready. While we're waiting for Miss Petrick, we can go.
I think she's there. I'm not sure if she's, it looks like they're working on it.
Okay, so
Sorry,
we'll
we
go to
were-
Miss Brennan's class and we'll
Yeah,
come
Yeah,
back.
thank you.
Okay, come closer, say your name.
My name's Chloe. Did you always like writing when you were younger?
Great question, Chloe. Question for you before I answer that question. Do you like to write? Chloe,
Yes. Come back.
you do.
Very much.
Very much.
Very-
What kind of things do you like to write, Chloe?
Scary.
You do. Okay, amazing. That's awesome. That's awesome. So I did not like to write when I was a kid. I found writing really hard. Whenever I tried to write, I would get a big headache right over this eyebrow. My handwriting was terrible. In fact, after first grade, I was asked to leave the school that I was in because I just seemed like I could not focus on work and I was not up to their academic standards. So no, I did not think of myself as a writer at all. It was only when I started telling stories to kids that I realized that, in fact, so when I was a kid, what I used to like to do was I liked to play. I played a lot. I don't mean video games, though I did like video games. But I like to do things like I would take action figures, you know, toys, and I would take one in each hand. And one was usually like the cool kid from my school. And the other one was me, not the cool kid. And the cool kid that would say something mean and funny to me, and all the other action figures would laugh. And then I would say something awesome and hilarious back to the cool kid, and all the other action figures would go, oh, because I had dissed him, and I would feel good about myself. Or because it's not always easy to think of a good comeback to the cool kid, he would say something mean and funny to me, and I would my action figure would just beat his action figure up, like, which was equally satisfying. I used to do this for like hours a day. The other thing I used to like to do as a kid was I was lucky enough to have a basketball hoop on my driveway. And so it could go up to 10 feet, which is regulation, or down to 4 feet. So I would put it down to 4 feet, and I would dunk and shoot 3-pointers and take fadeaways. And I would talk to myself and tell myself these stories about me making the NBA, what team I would be on, usually the Bulls, making the championship. Over and over again, hours a day, I would do this. So eventually I started writing books for kids, like I told you about. And one day I was sitting at home and I was telling the story out loud and typing it, because that's what I always do. I tell the story like I'm telling it to students and I write it down. And I was telling the story out loud and going like this. And I suddenly realized telling a story out loud and going like this is just about exactly the same thing as telling a story out loud and going like this with action figures. We're telling a story out loud and going like this on a 6-foot basketball hoop. And I suddenly realized that I had been a writer my whole life. Every day of my life, I spent 2 or 3 hours a day writing stories. I never wrote any of them down. But it's the same thing I do now, except now I write them down and I get paid to do it. So if you ever find yourself doing things like playing or talking to yourself on the basketball court or staring out the window during math class, just making up a story, that's being a writer too. And you can write it down now, or you can write it down later, but you're preparing right now for the life of a writer. Next question. Kimberly, you are muted.
Sorry. Miss Patrick's class, are you ready to join us, or were you joining us?
Yes, we're here.
Okay.
Hey there, buddy.
Go ahead, they can hear you.
Do you face writer's block often?
It's a great question. But first, let me just say that I have never, what grade are you in?
Fourth?
I've never met a 4th grader with a mustache like 14 mustaches. That's a lot of mustaches for a 4th grader. So, great question. Do you ever have writer's block?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Does your writer's block, I've got to ask this question before I know kind of how to answer. Does your writer's block happen when you're staring at a blank sheet of paper and you have no idea what to write? Or does it happen sort of in the middle of a story when you get stuck in the middle? Which one would you?
Middle of a story.
Middle of a story. Okay. Let me describe what I do about that. So it happens to me all the time. And here's an example. Imagine that like I have 2 characters, like let's say it's Elliot and Uchenna, and they've run and they've come to the edge of a cliff. And I'm like, I don't know what to do right now. And I could have them climb down, or I could have them like jump off, but I just don't know what to do. And maybe I like quit writing that day. And maybe the next day I'm still not writing. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? What I have to realize is it's not that I don't have any ideas. We all have millions of ideas that come through our head all the time. It's that I don't actually feel like writing what needs to come next. I don't feel like having them climb down a cliff. I don't think it makes sense for them to jump off a cliff. So what I have to do when I feel like I've got writer's block in the middle of a story is I have to rewind. I have the characters go backwards. Okay, they're not going to go to the edge of a cliff. They're going to find an abandoned airplane in a field, and they're going to jump in the airplane and find a way to get it going. And do I want to write a scene where they try to learn how to fly an airplane while they're flying one for the first time? Yeah, that sounds fun. Okay, now I want to write again. So writer's block in the middle of a story to me is usually just, I have ideas for what should come next, but I don't want to feel like writing any of those ideas. So my number one strategy is rewind and have your characters do something that you actually are excited to write, whatever it is. What do I feel like writing? Oh, that? Okay, let me rewind and have them go do that instead. That's what I recommend. Next question.
Thanks. So we'll go to Miss Nesslinger's class.
You're muted, Miss.
Oh, bear with us. We've got a student coming up here.
Here
So,
And Miss Brown, you're going to be next.
Hey.
So
Yeah. Ask
my
a
question is, what is your favorite genre of books?
Okay, wait. I have two questions before I answer that question. Do you mean, first of all, do you mean to read or to write?
To read.
Okay. Second question, what is your favorite genre of books to read?
I like reading sports books.
Okay, awesome. When I was your age, loved sports books. I read them almost all the time, exclusively. I loved sports books. Totally with you. These days, I most love to read mysteries and spy novels. And what's funny about that is I don't write mysteries or spy novels. I tend to write like fantasy, usually realistic fantasy, usually like feels like the real world, and then suddenly there's a dragon, or fairy tale fantasy. So it feels like a fairy tale, and then there's a dragon. I always write dragons. My editor once asked me if I was ever going to write a book without dragons in it, and I said, why? So I love reading something different than I love writing, which is a really what I love to write, which is a weird kind of thing. Do you have a recommendation of a sports book that you could give to people that you've loved recently?
It's just like a baseball book, because that's my favorite sport.
Yeah. What position do you play?
Catcher.
You're a pitcher?
Catcher.
Catcher. Oh, that's a thinking man's position. Love it. Great question. Next question.
Thank you.
So we're going to go to Miss Brown's class, and Miss Clausen's class, you're going to be next. So Miss Brown's class. Miss Brown's class, if you want to unmute so we can hear you.
There you go.
Here we go.
Excuse me. I have a question.
Great.
Yes.
What do you like? Are you more do you like writing more, or like drawing pictures of the story?
Great question.
Like,
Let me ask you that question. Do you think of yourself more as a writer or more as an illustrator, or neither one?
illustrator, because I did Pizza Monster.
No, did you create a character called
The
Pizza Monster?
attacks the whole town.
I love that. I hope you write a graphic novel about Pizza Monster, because I can imagine a lot of kids wanting to read that. I think you should do that. I do not think of myself as an illustrator. So all of these amazing illustrations in these books, I did not draw. They were illustrated by an incredible illustrator whose name is Hatem Ali. Hatem is, he grew up in Egypt, a Muslim guy who grew up in Egypt and now lives in Canada, and is one of the best illustrators that I know. He also illustrated my book, The Inquisitor's Tale. I love working with Hatem. He can do all sorts of amazing, different kinds of styles that are both beautiful and also super funny and exciting. So I can get my imagination out best through words. Words is something that I feel very comfortable with. Hatem gets his imagination out best through illustrations, and it sounds like you do too. I hope that I get to one day see your graphic novel about the Pizza Monster. Okay.
Okay, gonna sell a lot of comics on my 11th Avenue.
I believe it.
stage.
I could see Pizza Monster winning the Blue Stem one year. Okay, so I'll be ready for that. Next question. Great question.
Thank you. We're going to go to Miss Klassen's class, and Miss Crable's class, you'll be next. So Miss Klassen, if you have a student who'd like to ask a question.
Say your name.
My name is Annabelle,
Hi,
and
Emma.
I'm wondering, how did you come up with the names of your characters?
Great question. So are you talking about these characters?
Yeah, those two.
Yep.
So they are based on students that I taught when I was teaching first and second grade. So Uchenna was a girl in my first grade class, and I based this character on Uchenna. And I asked her if I was okay with her. She said yes. So Uchenna loves every kind of music. She is an expert in rock music, in blues music, in jazz, in rap, in country, in opera, everything. She's also super brave, and she doesn't mind being a little funky. That's like Uchenna. So Uchenna is based on Uchenna. Elliot is based on another student that I taught in second grade, but his name was not Elliot. You see, I let Elliot, but the boy's real name, read the book, and he liked it. And he liked being a character in it, but he's shy. So he did not want his name to be in the book. So I changed it from his name to Elliot, because Elliot sounds a little bit like his name. Not so close that you could ever guess, but had the same kind of vowel at the beginning, consonant at the end kind of sound. So that's how I chose Elliot and Uchenna. They are based on real people. One of them, their real name, Uchenna, and the other one, not their real name, Elliot. Now Elliot and Uchenna are both in college, which makes me feel very old. But they grew up and have had great adventurous lives. Next question.
Thanks. So we're going to go to Miss Crable's class, and Miss Brennan's class, you'll be next.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Corey, and I wanted to know, how long does it take you to publish a book start to finish?
Great question. Do you have any guesses about how long that takes?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Okay. You're about to be surprised, my friend. So it very much depends on how long the writing takes. It differs book by book. How long the publishing takes is almost always about the same. So when I get the idea for the book and I start to write it, it can go fast. These books go fast. And that means anywhere from 3 to 6 months. That's fast to write a book. Sometimes it takes longer, like a year or a year and a half, like this one. And sometimes it takes really long, like 6 years. This one took me 6 years to research, plan out, and write and finish. Once I finish writing the book, it always takes somewhere between 8 months and a year to publish it, which feels like a long time and is a lot more than 3 weeks. And the reason that it takes so long is there's a lot of things that has to happen. First thing that has to happen is my editor has to read it, and she has to tell me what she likes about it, but mostly what she doesn't like about it and what I need to change. Just like your teacher reads your work, so does my editor do that too. After my editor reads it, she works on big things like, are the characters good? Or could you change the ending? Then there's a copy editor, who's somebody who just goes through and makes sure I didn't make any spelling mistakes or grammatical mistakes or factual errors. That's a totally different thing that we save till the end. I don't worry about spelling or handwriting or grammar until right before the book is finished, published. But there's also somebody who has to design the book and make it look really pretty. We need Hatsam to go ahead and draw all the illustrations, and then the designer has to figure out how they go together. Then the book finally has to get sent to the printer, where thousands and thousands of copies are sent off, put in boxes, and sent to libraries and bookstores all around the world. So all of those things take anywhere from 8 months to a year to do after I have finished completely writing the book. Great question. Next question.
Thank you. Thanks. So we're going to go to Miss Brennan's class, and Mrs. Petrick's class, you'll be next.
Say what your name is.
My name is Liam, and what inspired you to write Unicorn Rescue Society?
Good question. What inspired me to write Unicorn Rescue Society? It was really because when I was teaching, I would often have kids say, okay, I would take kids to the library and help them walk through the shelves of the library, seeing what they would like. And I would say, would you like to read Because of Winn-Dixie? And they would say no. And I would say, would you like to read Matilda? And they would say no. And I said, would you like to read Harry Potter? They would say no. And I would start getting desperate. I'd be like, do you want to read Faulkner? Do you want to read the Bible? Just read something. And they would say no. And eventually they said, okay, I want to read a series. And I was like, okay. I want it to be funny. Okay. I want it to be exciting. Okay. I want there to be magic. All right. And I want there to be creatures, animals, mythical creatures if possible. And I was like, okay. So eventually I was like, fine, I'm just going to write it for you. So I wrote the Unicorn Rescue Society for every one of those kids that I used to have to take through the library and refuse to read anything else. And hopefully, maybe for you too. Great question. Next question.
So Miss Petrick's class. In Miss Nestlinger's class, you'll be next.
Thank you.
Do you like to read more than
Do I like to
writing?
read more or write more? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a good question. How about you? Do you prefer reading or writing?
I do not know.
Me neither, honestly, because that's kind of like asking me, what do I like, eating better or drinking better? Well, if I don't do one of those, I'm in real trouble, right? I need to drink water and I need to eat food no matter what. And I kind of feel that way in my life. Before I go to bed every night, I have to read. If I don't read before bed, I can't fall asleep. So I love to read before bed. It makes me very happy. In the morning, when I wake up, I need to write. If I didn't write in the morning, I usually feel depressed all day, because writing for me is like, as I told you guys before, playing for you guys. What I do is I take my computer. I usually go out to the park, even on a cold day like today, and I sit in the park and I write. And when I'm writing, I'm just imagining the coolest things I can possibly imagine and figuring out how to put them down on a piece of paper. Today, I was writing a story about a girl who has a map, and when she looks at the map and plays a horn, the map comes to life. But then goblins come out of the map and steal her baby brother, and she has to go into the map and get her baby brother back. Why did I write that? I don't know. I think it's cool. So I get to every day think of the coolest things that I can think of and write them down, and I try to write them down in such a way that you'll think they're cool also. So if I didn't do that, I would also feel depressed. So reading and writing, I love them both. They're like eating and drinking to me. Great question.
Thank you. And after Miss Nestlinger's class, excuse me, we'll end with Miss Brown's class. So you guys will, Miss Brown's class, you can ask the last question. So we'll go to Miss Nestlinger's class
Okay.
now.
Okay, good enough.
Have you always wanted to be a writer?
No, I think when I was a kid, I really wanted to be a professional basketball player. But it turned out, unfortunately, that I was not very good at basketball. But what I was good at when I played basketball, so I was on a championship team one year, my junior year of high school. My sophomore year of high school, we were the JV team and we won the championship. And I was very important to that team because my job was to go out there and get 6 fouls every game. They would say, that guy's the best player on their team. Go and foul him 6 times until he doesn't want to shoot the ball anymore. And that was my job, and I would get ejected after every game or during every game, and we won the championship. So, everyone can follow their dreams, even if maybe they're not very good at shooting a basketball. But I'm really happy that I'm a writer now, because as I told you, I think it's super fun. What do you want to be when you grow up?
A basketball player?
Okay, practice your shot and your dribbling, and don't worry about the fouls. Those come naturally. Okay. Next question.
Thank you.
So we're going to go with Miss Brown's question. This will be our last question.
Have you ever started writing a book and then just stopped in the middle because you didn't really like it?
Yeah, I did. I usually don't do that. I try not to. If I've invested enough time into a book that I've gotten halfway through, then almost always I say, I've got to find a way to finish it. Now, usually that involves rewinding and changing a lot of things and then rewriting them so that it works. Every once in a while, I have put down a book in the middle, but I usually try to go back to them eventually. So in fact, right now, the book that I'm starting to research, before I start writing, I do a lot of reading. So I'm researching a book that I wrote half of and quit about 5 years ago. And now I'm going to research and get ready to start writing it again. and I'm going to write it again from scratch, but I'm going to use things from that old version of the book in this new one. I don't want to just let it go forever, but it wasn't working the way I was writing it. So it does sometimes happen, but usually I try to find a way to make it work. Great question. I have to say, these were wonderful questions from you kids in the state of Illinois. I am so excited that I got to talk to you, and I'm really honored that I was asked to be here and to be on the Blue STEM list. You all are awesome, and I hope you enjoy the books that you read, all of the books, mine and everyone else's too.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to our readers today. I agree, those were awesome questions. Students or teachers, if you want to unmute, and students, you can say goodbye. And thank you so much for joining us today. That was awesome.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.